Hello, Helen here. Welcome to my Crafty Adventures podcast for July. Once again, this is my second attempt at doing this podcast. I did one yesterday and thought that my mic problems that I'd had the month before had been solved, but no, alas, we put the battery in the wrong way around, so it still wasn't working. So I did the whole podcast and then discovered that again there was no sound. So we've gone through a whole process last night of checking camera settings, and it turned out just that the battery was in the wrong way around in the mic. So I've tested it this morning and it all seems to be working, so I'm having another go at this podcast. So welcome if you're new here, and welcome back if you've been here before. I live in New Zealand, kia ora. It is July, so it's winter here in New Zealand, and it's been really cold this last week or so. It's been white frosts in the morning and, starting off 4 or so degrees, but then warming up a little bit up to sort of 9-ish during the day. We always have quite nice blue sky days, but then we've also had dreadful flooding and things in this area in the last month. We've had 2 separate sessions of flooding, and unfortunately the same people got flooded out the second time as the first time, so there's a lot of damage out country, a lot of people that have had their homes destroyed, etc. So it's not been a good season this year. But then I've had a little bit of time to do some knitting, so that's always a good thing, isn't it? So I'll show you what I've been doing. Before I get started, I'll just tell you what I'm wearing, because I'm bound to get some questions. This is the beautiful Stansbury Shawl by Emily Clawson. She's from Yarnbrary in the States, and she designed this beautiful shawl with the lovely lace to use a sock set. So the main bulk of it's for the 100-gram ball, and then you use a 20-gram ball for the contrast. And I love this, and I always get lots of comments when I wear it, so I'm thinking about actually making another one. I thought I'd make it in quite dark colours with a lighter contrast this time, so hopefully that'll be in my near future. It's definitely in my queue to do again. It's really lovely, and it was a really quick knit as well. So I have got 3 knitting finishes and 2 knitting whips at the moment. Now last month I talked about how my daughter had wanted me to make some hats for my grandson for the winter, because he'd grown out of all his baby knits. So I set to and made some which I showed last month, and then I've made 2 more, and they're my first 2 finishes. So I had been making this little hat that's got a ear pieces and a tie, because she was worried that he kept pulling his hat off, and it would be good to have a backup one where she could tie it on. So I was about halfway last time, so I finished it, and then you pick up stitches on the inside of the rib to do the little ear muffy bits, and then made an I-cord and put some tassels on the bottom. So that's that one finished. Now that one's done in a yarn. The pattern is called the double rib toddler hat, but it's got a mock rib option. So I'll have the link to that in the description below, like I'll have for everything that I talked about here today. So that's the mock rib, and it's really quite a fun kind of stitch. Very easy to do, and that was done with the yarn This is a yarn that I bought. I went, after she asked for the hats, I went and did some shopping at a couple of wool shops, and this is one that I bought. It's by Makr, which is the Lincraft brand here in Australia and New Zealand, and it's called Surroundings yarn, 100 grams, and it's 100% acrylic, I think it is. Let me put my glasses on. Yes, 100% acrylic, and it's called Blue Sphere, which I think is just kind of like a faded denim look, which is rather a nice colour. And then on that shopping spree, I also bought this other yarn that's by the same, it's called the same brand and by the same people, Makr Surroundings yarn, with variegated colour, but this yarn is very different. That one was lovely to use, and it was properly, you know, plied, where this one, it seems to be really thick and thin in places. I don't know whether you can see that. It comes unravelled. It just looked like a whole lot of fibres just laying side by side rather than being twisted and made into yarn. So it wasn't the best, but it did make quite a cute little hat. So that's the hat there, and that's how the colours came out. So it's really lovely, super soft, very comfortable for him to wear. And I made it a bit longer so he could have a little bit of a brim, and that would stretch as he grows older, so he'll be able to have this for quite a long time. And this is actually the second one I made. The first one I've already given to her and she's using it, but the one ball I got 1.5 of the hats out of, so I only just had to reach in sort of for about the last little bit here for the second ball. So, and I've got all of that left, so that would probably be enough to make another hat some stage. So yeah, that's just a 2x2 rib. Really simple. I ended up just looking up the internet for a chunky rib hat, toddler's hat, and I found one on Lovecrafts. You had to make an account with them to get the free pattern, which I did, and then I could just download it whenever I needed to go back and refer, especially when I started doing the shaping of the top. But yeah, very simple hat. I did that sort of in 1.5 evenings. Very chunky, very quick knit, so it was very satisfying. So that's my second finish. And then my third finish was, I wasn't expecting to be finished, I thought it was going to be a whip. My daughter has a friend that's her best friend, that's been a friend right from, I think we met up at first year in primary school, and then she was friends with her all the way through school, and she's still friends with her, and she's got a 4-year-old little boy. She was the first one out of the group to have a baby, and she's just about to have her second baby end of next month. So Carissa asked whether I would make her a little cardi or something, and then I said, oh, I didn't think I'd be able to get one done that quickly. So she said, oh, maybe just a hat and some booties or something. And I said, oh, well, I'll see what I can do. And I'd made her a cardi for Riley. We knew he was going to be a boy, out of this yarn. And it's another yarn produced by Spotlight, which is another craft and homeware shop that we've got here in New Zealand and also Australia, and it's Bella Baby, 100%, or it's 60% acrylic, 40% nylon, 100 grams, and it's just got a blue and green spot in it. And she was into sort of more neutral colours. She didn't really want blues a lot for when he was a baby, you know, brand new baby. So I did a little cardi in that, and if you look way back, my first or second of my Crafty Adventures videos, you'll see the one that I made. And she said, oh, could you make it like that? And I said, but she said that Ainsley's not going to know what she's going to have until it's born. They've decided to keep it as a surprise. So I said to her when I went to buy some yarn. I said, well, to me it's actually a little bit boy looking. It probably doesn't need to be, but that was my feeling. And I said I found a couple of other yarns which were this natural one, which has got little flecks of brown and mustardy sort of colours. There was that option. Or there's this option here, which has got a red and a green and a blue and a sort of orange speck through it, and it's called Bright Spot. And this fawns and brown one was called Natural Spot, and then the blue and green one was called Mint Spot. So I went in to her and I bought a ball of each, went into her and said, which one do you want me to knit? And she ended up deciding on the Bright Spot, because she said it was more gender neutral. So that's what I ended up doing. And I went on to my favourite baby YouTube channel, which is called Crochet Baby, and she's also got a knitting baby channel as well, but she does have knitting on her Crochet Baby YouTube channel, and she does very good tutorials where she holds your hand all the way through. She shows you making, it's usually a 3 to 6 month old, but then she tells you what to do, changing the needle size or sometimes the yarn to make smaller and bigger, and she has 4 or 5 different sizes. So I found a pattern that I thought looked really nice, and it was neutral for boy or girl, and decided I'd go down a size to what she was doing. She was using 3mm needles, and I went down to 2.5 was what her suggestion for a newborn to 3-month-old. And so I started it and actually finished it in 4 days. It was a really quick knit, being double knit, but even though I used 2.5 needles, which were really small needles, yeah, I finished it. So it's a little cute little cardi jacket. It's got a very simple but quite effective little yoke pattern, which isn't hard at all. It's just knits and purls. And then her style, I'm actually started the second one in the Natural Spot one, so I'll talk a bit more about the pattern because it'll make more sense later in my whip section. So yes, 4 days knitting, and it's finished. So I'm really happy with that, and I think it is gender neutral, and it looks to me to be about a newborn size, so I'm really happy with that. And I think she will too. I'll give it to her tomorrow night when they come around for tea. So I think she'll be really surprised that I'd finished it already. So that is my 3 finishes. And I'm really happy with all of them. They're all very quick, satisfying knits. So that's the finish of that section. And then next I will show you the 2 works in progress that I've got. So while we're talking about the little cardi, I'll show you that as my next whip. It's a really good pattern because you can get it out of 100-gram ball. This is how much I had left of the Bright Spot one for the newborn. But when I finished that and I saw the size of it, sorry, I'm out of shot. When I saw the size of that, and newborn sizing always makes me a bit nervous because depending on the size of the baby, sometimes they don't get to wear them for very long, only just a couple of weeks, and then they've grown so much that they don't fit anymore. So I decided I might do the next one in the size that she was showing, which was a 3 to 6 month, I think, and it was done on 3mm needles. And what you do is you start from the top. So this is it here, and this is as far as I've got. It looks a bit weird at the moment, 2 sleeves and nothing but the yoke. But her patterns are very clever because she starts at the yoke, and you do the circular yoke on circular needles, although it doesn't have to be, it can be on straight needles, and you knit the yoke. And already I'd remembered how to do the yoke from just doing the first one. It was a really easy pattern to remember, so I did the yoke. And then what you do is you start from one end and you divide it up into, it's a free pattern so I can tell you about it, you divide it up into the 25 stitches for the front, 36 stitches for the sleeve, and then there's 52 stitches for the back, and then again 36 stitches for the sleeve and 25 for the other front. And what you do is you knit past your first front and you knit to the end of your first sleeve, and then you just knit backwards and forwards on that until it's the length it needs to be, and you do your little rib. And then so that you're not cutting the yarn and having to do sewing in or anything, what she does is get you to fold the sleeve in half up inside out, and then you use a crochet hook, and as you've gone up, you've done slip stitches all the way on your first stitch on each row, and so you've got these lovely big V's that you can pick up, and you crochet all the way down to here. You pick up 2 stitches either side of your last loop that you've made of your crocheting, and then you knit those two on the other side of the loop, and you knit across the back, across the full sleeve, and then you start going backwards and forwards and doing the second sleeve, and you do the same. So you go to the end, you crochet back, knit to the end, and then which is the stage I've got to, you've got the front, 2 fronts and the back all on the one needle, and then now I'm just going to be knitting the body. So it's a very clever pattern, very easy to do, and I think this is going to be a really good neutral sort of colour for people that don't want colour for their babies, which seems to be a trend at the moment, certainly not pink and blue. So I think that's going to be really sweet, and I've got, I don't know whether I bought them. I ended up finding some really cute little shell buttons at Spotlight, which I think will go perfectly with it. So it's going to have little shell buttons down it, so I think that's going to look really sweet. And this is literally 2 nights work. I did both sleeves last night, and the night before I did the yoke, so it's really is a very quick knit. It'll take me possibly a couple more nights to do the body, but then the garment's finished because you've already sewed up the sleeves. You're making the button bands as you go. So I used my Elderflower Stitches 24 Advent, which was all pinks, either solids or she'd alternated solids and variegateds, and it moved from a mauvey pink through to a peachy pink and then went into some tans. And I was making this, which is called the Dust of Snow Wrap by Helen Stewart. But when I got knitting it, first I was having problems with it. It's got a ball of, it's a fingering yarn with, and I'd held a thread of Kid Silk Haze white with it, and I was finding the fluff coming off that Kid Silk was making me cough a lot, and got to the stage where I was just coughing all the time, so I decided to put it aside. But then when I got it back out again, it's here partly made. I've ended up partly frogging it at this point. I had about double of it done, so it's a kind of oblong long rectangle, and it's got garter areas of garter, but then in between it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 different laces, and you just alternate all the way up. And I had about double this done, so I frogged it back about half, but then I thought I'd better just wait and show you before I frogged the rest of it. So because I decided, because the pattern is just, it's massive, I didn't know how much I was going to wear it. It's absolutely beautiful, and I think, you know, good on people that have made it and use it, but I had a feeling I was just going to, I wanted something special for the yarn because I'd spent a lot of money on the Advent. But in the end I thought, well, if it's just going to sit there, I'm never going to wear it, what is the point really? So I frogged half of it, and I've ended up making, now the pattern is called, I found a pattern, I decided I really wanted to just do a cowl, but to have, so I really need to just find a pattern, and I wanted to just find a free pattern if I could, rather than spending money on a pattern that I was just going to use the numbers for pretty much, and not sorry, I can hear my dishwasher emptying water, and I don't know whether you're going to be able to hear it or not. Googling away. I wanted to be able to do rows of garter with lace in between, and I wanted to use the same colours, so I wanted to use a couple of rows of, or 4 rows of garter in between each of the lace patterns. So I found this pattern here called Pimlico. It's a free pattern, so I'll link that. It was on Ravelry, so I'll link that in the description below. It's by a designer called Alexandra Brink, and her pattern is just a lace pattern all the way up, but what you do is you work these charts, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 charts like this, and every time you finish a chart, the first of the next chart, you're decreasing 2 stitches, so it's gradually going sort of in a triangle so that you've got less fullness around the top part than you have from the bottom part. And I thought that was a really cool pattern, but I have adapted it, so I've ended up doing about half so far. So I've unpicked half of the dust of snow, and I've put it back into this cowl, and it's a bit hard to see because it's not blocked yet, but I started off with the colour straight. It was the darkest colour out of the, and I thought that was a really nice edging, and she does it in sort of moss seed stitch, the first one, so that it doesn't roll, because if you do it in just knits and purls, one row knit, one row purl, it is inclined to roll. So she's cleverly designed this seed stitch or moss stitch first lace pattern, and that's when I got to the top of that pattern, I decided that's where I'd start putting the garter, 4 rows of garter. So it's white Ashford's Merino 4-ply, and that's what I was using for my Dust of Snow shawl as well, held with a 2-ply Rowan Kid Silk Haze, which I'm unpicking from the Dust of Snow and putting into here. So I've got kind of randomly putting the different pinks in. So the darkest is the bottom sort of edging, and then I've done a plain, a variegated, 2 plains, but they were quite different pinks, and then I've gone into a variegated lace again, and then I'll start, now I've shown you, I'll start putting it into, unpicking and putting it into this, and it's working out actually quite well. So the amount that I unpick, which was about half the 20-gram ball when I was doing the Dust of Snow, each section was about half of the 20-gram skein that I was using. So in this it's slightly less than the 10 because I'm ending up with a tiny little sort of nugget left of each of the ones that I've unpicked to put into here. So I think it's going to be really pretty with the pink, and it's going to be so quite long and then kind of just bunch up around your neck. Super soft with the kids' silk haze in it. So yeah, it's really easy knit, really nice result. I think it's looking really pretty, and I'm really happy with being able to use the yarn on something that I'm going to use, because I think a cowl I'll use. I don't think I've got any cowls at this point, and I always find shawls are fine because I can tie them, but I always find scarves or wraps I kind of fluff around with a lot, and I never feel like they're sitting right and they're comfortable or whatever, where I think a cowl that you can just put over your head and just have it wrapped around your neck will work out, you know, I'm hoping, a lot more comfortable and a lot less fluffing as it was. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. Really happy with the colouring. So yes, so I've had to put this aside. I was really enjoying it. I was reluctant to put it aside to do the baby knits, but I think I'll just finish the one that I'm doing. I'm going to do the mint colour one, possibly in a crocheted design from the same website. But I'm not sure whether I'll come back to this and finish this first, because I've actually got another plan for another cowl after this one, because I'm enjoying making it so much that I think I might just go on when I finish this and do another one. I'll have one of these and the crochet one, little cardigan happening at the same time. So, because I really want to get back to this and get moving with it again. So really happy with that whip as well. So that's all that I've been working on lately. I haven't done any crocheting at all. Once I finish all these baby things, I might try and get back to the crocheted heart blanket that I was doing, but then I've also seen a pattern of another blanket that I'd like to do too. So there's never enough time to do all the things that you want and see. But anyway, thank goodness it's winter and I'm getting quite a bit done, because I definitely get less done in the summer. So now I'll just go on to some acquisitions that I've bought. I've had a bit of a spending spree. It was my birthday last weekend, and I always quite like to buy some yarn at the time of my birthday, so that I've got, and I'd like to support some of the New Zealand dyers, like indie dyers around. So I know last year I bought some from Roxy Fibres, and this year I think I'm going to, I supported another lady who's in Wellington called Broomstitch, and Kat, she does some really lovely colours, so I decided I'd support her this time around. So I'll show you what I've got of hers. Now she's been doing a collection on her website that's named after Scottish goddesses, and she's got 100-gram balls in either fingering or DK and in various different bases, and she's also did some minis. So I decided I'd get the full collection of minis, which is 8 minis in all the different ones she's got in the collection, and I ended up getting a sparkle base. So this is them here. So it's a lovely bouquet of colours. So each one's named after a different Scottish goddess. They're all, there's a purple, a pink, a turquoise, a green, a navy, an apricot-y, which is interesting because it goes to divides into a red and a yellow, which is going to be interesting to see how that knits up. And then there's a sort of bluey, purpley one as well there. So really lovely. And I always really like having some minis in stock that I can do things like these contrasts, or I haven't done socks in a while, but you know, you can do stripes in a hat or on a shawl, and I'm thinking of maybe starting an anthology throw, because I quite like to do a round blanket at some stage, and I really like the look of that, and it's got lots of different colours in it, so I thought I might use some of these for that. And then I bought some full 100-gram balls, but this time round I decided I was going to buy DK rather than fingering, because I've got a lot of fingering hand-dyed yarns, but not a lot in double knit. So whenever I look at a pattern, if it's double knit, I always, you know, like have to turn away because I don't really have much in the way of that. So I decided this time I was just going to buy them all in DK, so that I did have a little bit of a stock. So one of the colours I'd been eyeing up in her Scottish collection, which is called Finguala, and it's a lovely mauvey pink and white mix, and so I decided to buy a full skein of that. Really pretty. And then on her website she had another one that was like a darker version of this with white and the darker pink, called Chalice, but when it arrived it doesn't have as much white as I was expecting. There's a few little flecks, but it's just more or less a pink, a darker pink or a medium pink. So that's called Chalice, and that I think actually goes quite well with that one, so I probably would use them together if I can find a pattern, or when I come to it, it might be separate. So those two, that one was just slightly disappointing because I thought there was going to be more white in it, but that's okay, it's still a really pretty colour. And then this is the last one, and I've got plans to make another cowl, and I'd been looking at all my colours of my different shawls and wraps and things that I'd made, and I've got nothing in blue, so I decided I wanted to buy a variegated blue that I could make the cowl with. And on the website it's called Healing, and it looked a bit more sapphire blue than turquoisey blue, but when it's arrived it's definitely more of a turquoisey blue in my opinion, and it is variegated and it's got really pretty colours in it, so I'm definitely happy with it and gonna use it, but not maybe for this cowl. So I've ended up doing some dyeing. I wanted it more pastel, so I've ended up dyeing some yarn, so when I get started with that I'll show you what that's going to look like. So I was pretty happy with what I ended up managing to dye and what I'm going to use that for. So that's on my queue to do a little bit further down the line. So yeah, I'm really happy with those yarns, and I really enjoy being able to support our indie dyers. Yeah, so for some reason I always do it around about my birthday, so it's a good excuse to buy some yarn. So that's all my acquisitions other than those spot yarns that I'd bought and the various different hat yarns, which I don't think they count because I've got a purpose for those. These other ones will just go in my stash to, you know, enjoy and look at and eventually use in a pattern, but I'm not always in a hurry to use those because they're just so beautiful to have and to look at. So that's all my podcast pretty much. I do have plans to do some yarn dyeing during the week, this coming week. We're having some major construction done with our library where I work at the moment, and they're in a really pull everything down and look at it and fix it and put it back together again stage at the moment. We've had one of our main meeting rooms turned out to be not earthquake safe and was coming away from the wall it was built against, so they had to close that because it was dangerous and do repairs on that. And so while they were at that, they were going to try and fix some of our roof leaking problems that we have every time it rains, and also they discovered some of the trusses inside the roof of our office area upstairs had been cut at some stage, and so that wasn't, all the ceiling was starting to sink. So they're doing some major work, and while they're doing the major part where they're pulling out the ceilings and fixing all the trusses and things, we couldn't really work in the building, so we're all working from home. So I've just had my first week at home, and the next week's going to be a week's leave that's been booked, and then after that we've got 2 weeks still at home, and then by that stage they should have fixed the meeting room, and all us that have got offices upstairs are going to move down into the meeting room and work from there some days and home some days for the next wee while. So right through to September, October, we're going to be pretty all over the place with our working. So I decided to take a week off. So anyway, that's beside the point. What I've decided I'm going to do is I've got some hanks of mohair silk floof, and I bought them quite a while ago. They're 75% mohair, 25% silk, 2-ply, and I thought I might just have a little, one of the days that I'm off through the week, I might just have a little bit of a dyeing session. Sorry, excuse all the light that's coming in, it's looking a bit bright across my shoulders here. So I'm going to do some dyeing of this. I wanted to dye some soft blue to go with the yarn that I'd dyed, and I also want to have a go at maybe doing some other colours. So I'm going to do some dyeing, and what I'll do is I'll film some. It won't be a tutorial, but I'll just film some of what I'm doing and then give you film the end result and tack this on to the end of this podcast, because I've got no other vlogging really that I'm doing this month. There's not really much to show you. It's all fairly dormant and cold and miserable outside, so I didn't really have anything to vlog. So I'll vlog this and show you at the end of the video, so it won't go out until later in the week, but it'll still be in July. So for any of you that might be interested in seeing yarn being dyed, I'll show that. But yes, as I said, it's not a tutorial, and if you're not interested, just skip ahead. You certainly don't have to watch that. So that's my plans for this coming week. So yeah, that's pretty much it today. I always appreciate you spending some time with me. I hope you, wherever you are, it's been warm if you're in the northern hemisphere, or I don't know, you have had some quite warm or good summer this year, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, I hope you're staying warm and getting lots of crafting done like I have been. So it's always good to see you and hear from you. I appreciate every one of you that stops by and spends some time with me, and we'll catch you next month. Thanks very much, and bye.
you.